Hi, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fork Mike Knife, it's season 2, episode 5. Today we have with us Amy Gerhartz. Just real quick, if this is the first time you're seeing a Fork Mike Knife episode and you're interested in seeing more, the easiest way to do that is probably at our website, BUNCEAROO.com, and then scroll to the events and Fork Mike Knife.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other thoughts? Should we go grab Amy?
I think we should go grab Amy.
All right, let's go grab Amy.
I get to be in the camera all by myself.
Hi.
Hi. So happy to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. This is great.
That's awesome. Well, today is kind of twofold, right? For us, it's Father's Day and it's Cooking with Amy Day.
There you go. Win-win.
Yeah, so we thought we'd start with just kind of talking about Father's Day and the importance of our fathers. You want to go first, Cheryl?
Sure. I think my dad has always been a strong influence on me in being kind and being strong and not being afraid to try things. So I think that's what's gotten me to today. I mean, my mom's obviously a strong influence, but today is Dad's Day. Unfortunately, we lost Dad last year. So, this year's been a little bittersweet. And while we do miss him, his legacy lives on and we chat about him and laugh with him every day. So it's kind of a great day to be here.
That's great.
Amy, you want to talk about your dads?
Sure. Yeah, I'm lucky. I have 2 dads. So I've got 2 sets of parents, my mom and my stepdad, and then my dad and my stepmom. And I've had them both in my life since I was really little. So I kind of got 2 different father experiences. My dad, my biological dad, is very musical. It's where I get all the music side of who I am from. He's very creative, very, very similar, likes to try new things, reads every book that's ever been written, and is a very just loving, happy guy. And so is my stepdad. My stepdad is the cook. My stepdad is like, this is his kitchen. Like that's
a phenomenal kitchen.
I know. I know. My stepdad's the guy that's like, you know what I want to do today? I want to learn how to make cutting boards. Let me show you. He actually, he does. He makes cutting boards. Like he woodworks, and he's the guy that was very much like, I want to learn how to be a ski instructor. So I'm going to go to ski school. I want to learn how to weld. So I'm going to take welding classes. So my stepdad is very, very big on the experimentation. If you want to do something, you just go learn how to do it. So I kind of developed characteristics and qualities from both of them. And I was really very fortunate to grow up in a loving home on both sides. And it's great. I mean, this is Dad's Day. And that's why I'm so excited for our recipe, because we're making meat.
Yes.
No vegetarian cooking here today.
Absolutely. Well, let's give Billy a minute because Billy is a dad. And I think we had some great visitors this weekend that just left this morning.
Yeah, so I have 4 kids and they all reached out today and wished me happy Father's Day. I was lucky that my son Brandon and his fiance Nicole came for the weekend, and they left not too long ago to head back to Arlington. But I did want to say a little bit about my dad. I'm the youngest of 6, and if you grew up in the 60s and 70s in Rochester, New York, you probably knew Roger Bunce. He had a great influence on the town. He was the high school wrestling coach of Gorilla Monsoon, and he just had all these amazing things that he did. He was the first coach of the U.S. Paralympic team.
Wow.
And what blew me away is at his funeral several years ago, actually 15 years ago, right before Cheryl and I got married, over 2,000 people came to his wake. And it just blew me away at the impact that he had on his students and people that he touched in Rochester. And I'll never forget that. I know some of my siblings, I think they said they were going to watch today. So we were all talking this morning about what impact or what influence our father had on all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So shall we get to it?
Yeah.
All right.
We always start with our guest and what they chose to make today.
Yes.
So let's start with that.
Sure.
What do you got for us?
I decided to go really easy, really simple. When I think of dads, I think of meat and potatoes and like, I don't think of those bougie healthy meals. I think of like, let's get into the really, really filling stuff. So I decided to go with pork ribs today. And these are
Nice.
pork back ribs.
Mhm.
Baby back? Yep.
We'll see. They were shrink wrapped at the store. I grabbed
It's
them.
meat on bones.
There's the meat there. Yeah. So I've got
Not Flintstone bones.
Yeah,
pork,
I got a rack of
the
ribs
smaller
we're gonna do. I did prep ribs ahead of time. So for people watching, this is not like a get it done in an hour.
It's not a
thing.
4-hour show today?
Not a 4-hour show. But I also decided with this because I've been a little more health conscious recently. I had some food sensitivity testing done, and I found there were certain things that I wasn't digesting well that was causing inflammation in my body, and then eczema and mental fog. And so I decided most of the time when I go to the store, I get so frustrated when I try to buy a sauce or I try to buy anything and it either has milk in it or it has sugar or it has a bunch of other things. And I love sugar, don't get me wrong, but I like to know how much I'm putting into something. And so I decided I'd also do a sugar-free barbecue sauce for you guys today.
cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, I am pairing with your ribs today, some of my dad's favorites. We are doing a cheddar jalapeno cornbread, and then we are doing supper pickles. Many people do pickles and they do them and they can them and, either dills or, sweet gherkins or whatever. But we do ones that only take about 4 hours and they're crisp and slightly pickled. And it's just something that we've done ever since I was little. So
I love it. I like that.
Yeah.
If it's okay with you, Amy, we're going to have to get that cornbread in the oven. So
Do it.
if we could just start with the cornbread.
Yep.
I'm going to grab the camera from Cheryl.
All right.
And
Perfect.
I'm going to flip the camera around. There we go.
You good?
We're good.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cast iron pan. We only do our cornbread in cast iron pans. I know that sounds pretty ridiculous to some people because you might not have them. You can use loaf pans. You can use anything you want to, muffin pans. But this thing has been through a lot and it has served us well. So I'm actually going to put it in the oven. The oven's been preheated to 425. It doesn't take very long at all to put the batter together. So I always put the pan in first. And what that's going to do is when we are ready to pour the batter in there, I'm going to put a little bit of oil in, and it is actually going to help create this beautiful crust on the outside of the cornbread. And I have my... If I don't put this out now, I have a habit of reaching for things.
Yeah. I do the same thing.
Exactly. So I have measured out 2 cups of self-rising white cornmeal. I grew up with a brand called White Lily, and it literally is a gentleman back in the 1800s that bought a mill, and he started naming all his products after his wife named Lily. But they use, and Amy, you'll appreciate this, they use what's called winter wheat. So it's a late harvest, and it tends to be a soft wheat. And what that means is it has a component of less gluten versus a full wheat flour. So we've been using this for years. My grandmother used it for biscuits, and we use this buttermilk corn mix for our cornmeal. So the first thing I'm going to do is get to it on the jalapeno. I know you all have seen us do this before a million times, but I am going to run you through. That clicking is driving me nuts.
Yeah, apologize for the clicking. We're trying to figure out what's causing that.
So we are aware. Sorry, guys. Just take out the vein, take out the seeds, and then we're just going to mince it. Alrighty. All right. And if you'll recall, mincing really is just getting small shards of whatever it is you're doing, and then turning those into very tiny little squares. And that's so, you know, when you do use something that's minced, whether it's garlic or jalapeno, whatever it is, it means that when you start to bite into something, you're not going to get a mouthful and be either heated up by a pepper or overwhelmed by garlic, if we're using those two examples. Always remember, get those fingers out of the way. All right, so those are ready. And when we switch to Amy, I'll wash my hands, so don't freak out.
Don't touch your face.
Don't touch my face. So typically this recipe is 2 cups of the cornmeal self-rising mix. It's 1.25 cups of buttermilk. And do me a favor, when you are taking your ingredients out of the holder that they're in, whether it's a measuring cup or a bowl, make sure you get it all out of there. You've taken the time to measure, make sure you catch all of it. I'm going to throw in just a little bit of oil. It's about a tablespoon. And then
What kind of oil did you use?
I used peanut oil today. Part of the reason is when you do put something in the oven, you want something that has a higher heat. So that's why I used that. And since I was using it for the pan, I went ahead and used it for the cornbread mixture. All right, so the recipe calls for originally 1 egg. I really like the richness of the egg yolks, so I will tend to add in an extra egg yolk to my recipe. All right, that's done. I'm going to give that a quick whisk. That way you break up the white membranes of the egg as well as getting that yolk blended. All right, so there's the flour. I'm adding in a little bit of sugar. That's optional, Amy. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
This kind of balances out everything. And then it is really literally a quick mix. Now, could you put all of your wet ingredients and just go for it? Yes. The problem is you really don't want to whisk batter. It's okay if it's a little lumpy. You want to retain the softness of that flour and you don't want to overmix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to whisk all my wet and then put it into the dry. Now, as with any bread, baking, quick mix, whatever, sometimes, and you can tell by the feel of it, it might feel a little too thick. You want a little bit more looseness. I'm going to go grab the buttermilk and add just a tad more.
Now, have you ever tried this without buttermilk or with a milk substitute?
I have not used almond milk, but I've wanted to play with it, so I may try that and then let you know how it goes.
Perfect. I've heard oat milk is a good baking substitute
Yeah, absolutely.
for milk
And
too, because it's a little thicker.
To make it have that buttermilk quality, that sourness, you could add a little bit of vinegar to it.
I've heard that. Yeah. I'm excited to experiment with that with breads for sure.
Yep. All right. Do you see how that's just a little looser? That's what I'm looking for. That took another couple tablespoons. All right. So now we're going to add in the jalapeno and we're going to add in the cheese. The pan should be nice and hot. Just make sure you well incorporate everything. You want the cheese to be covered with the batter so that it doesn't stick out all by itself. That way it kind of incorporates more. All right, so that's good. Let me just get this moved over a little bit. That should be nice and hot. And add a little bit of oil. And then you just put your batter in.
Nice.
Can
Yummy.
you see those bubbles happening?
Oh,
That's what's starting to put that crust on the outside.
you're only an hour and a half from me. I think I can get down there in time.
Well, come on, we're ready for you. All right, so this is going to go in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. All right, so we are going to turn it over to Amy and get us started on that meat.
Okay, that was great. So I'm going to bend the camera down. I don't have an assistant today or ever, so I'm gonna break it down. So this is what should I say? Let me see. Can you guys see the ribs? Okay, in there, Bill, you got it.
Yep.
Okay.
We got you.
This is a rack of rib. The way that I buy them at the store, unless you're going to a place like Whole Foods or kind of a fancier meat place, they're usually shrink wrapped. So what I do is when I get them home, I cut open the shrink wrap. I make sure that they're not frozen. Obviously, you want them to be room temperature. And then I pat it down with a paper towel to get all the extra moisture and everything off of the ribs themselves, because then otherwise they're just wet and they're messy to work with. Now, I actually didn't know this next part until just recently, that there's an actual membrane on the inside of the ribs that I never knew was there. And I was watching a cooking video and it said you had to remove that membrane because otherwise it becomes really thick and hard to eat. You have to kind of, it's not good, basically. It tastes way better without the membrane. I'll let Bill and Cheryl explain why the membrane needs to be removed a little bit better than me when I have to go wash my hands. But so the way you find the membrane is you kind of look along the bone, or at least this is how I find it, and you'll see a little bit of a kind of a lip, almost. It's almost like a skin. And you can stick a knife underneath it and find the membrane, and then kind of just cut under where the membrane is to get a little piece to where you can peel it. And this is going to get a little messy, guys, so make sure you wash your hands after this. But then you kind of peel it back, kind of like a skin, to get it off of the bone. And this one is being a pain, and it's not coming off the way the other one was. Let me see if I'm just not getting under it enough. It is a little bit difficult to deal with, but when I get it up, I'll show you guys what we're looking for. You can see it's kind of pulling off like a skin almost. And so you really want to get all of that removed from the ribs before you cook them. So this is kind of the messy part. You just kind of, I feel very, this is going to be so bad. I feel very Silence of the Lambs right now. When I was doing this earlier, I was like, oh, it's like I'm removing skin off of something. That was really probably way too gross. Sorry, guys. But you're basically just removing this layer membrane. You can see it here, and you just kind of get underneath it and just pull it off. I'm assuming I'm get as much of it as you can. Is the big thing. So pulling it off. See, once you get a little under it, you can just kind of keep pulling until it's off. Now, some fancy butcher shops, and I know Whole Foods, when you buy ribs from there, some places have already removed the membrane for you. The stores where you're buying this already shrink wrapped and pre-done, and it's only like, this was a $6 rack of ribs. Like, it wasn't a fancy set of ribs. You're probably going to have to remove the membrane yourself. So just get as much of it off as you can. There might be a little bit left on this one that I can go back through and get later. And then what I do is I cut this down the center, because I don't have a baking pan that's big enough for this rack of ribs. So I go in between the bones, just take a good sharp knife and just kind of cut it right down the center. Boom. All right, next I have to wash my hands because I don't want to touch these ribs anymore, and I don't want to touch my salt and pepper shaker with rib juice on my hands. So I'll be right back. Bill, while I'm washing my hands, do you want to explain to everybody about the membrane and why it's so important to get rid of that?
Happy to. Yeah, so that membrane, we call it silver skin. And so all meat will have that. That is the tendons in the meat that holds it to the bone and holds it to other muscles. And so unlike fat, when you heat up fat in the oven, it'll melt away, and fat gives you flavor. But that silver skin doesn't melt. No matter how much you heat it up, all it does is get tense and pull it together. And as Amy pointed out, it's just not fun to eat. So it's really important to cut it off. It's not only on these pork ribs, but if you buy, say, a tenderloin, a pork tenderloin, there's always going to be a little bit on one side. And it's important, even when you buy pork tenderloin, it looks like it's completely clean, and usually 2 tenderloin come in a package. Go ahead and get a knife under that silver skin and cut that silver skin off. Otherwise, when you cook that tenderloin, you'll see one side that'll kind of bend up, and that's the silver skin, doing that. So it's great, Amy, that you were able to show us how easy it is to go ahead and pull that silver skin off.
Yeah, I mean, once you get over the kind of grossness of pulling skin off of a dead animal, it's really, it's easy. So what I do next, and actually, this is not my recipe. I found this recipe online from a couple, and I thought it was so brilliant because I'm a no-nonsense cooker. I don't want to have 25,000 steps to cooking something. So this is really remove the membrane. You just salt and pepper. You can add spices. You can add a rub. I just do salt and pepper. And I get kind of liberal with my salt. This is pink Himalayan sea salt. I don't go too bananas. Like, you don't have to coat it, but just sprinkle a little liberally on it. And then you pepper, of course. And I do the side with the membrane first because I'm going to flip it and put it into a pan and do the same thing. So salt and pepper each side. Let me see if I can move this camera now that I washed my hands to show you guys what I'm doing. So, and then I've got this baking dish. Now I have this, since I'm not at my house, I usually use a Pyrex baking dish, just a good old glass Pyrex. This is a Polish pottery dish that I think will work just as fine, that my parents have. And then I use tongs because I've already washed my hands and I don't want to wash my hands again. Just grab the ribs and then I put them down that way. I'll show you guys again. I'll move the camera. Let me get these dirty cutting boards out of the way. Okay. And then, as you can see, I have them kind of put in like so. I wish I could pull my phone down a little bit more. I don't think it'll do it, but that's okay. And then I salt and pepper again on both sides. This is really, really easy, you guys. Salt and pepper is my favorite spices. They are my favorite spices. Hey, cornbread, looking good. Because I feel like you don't need to always get so fancy with your cooking spices. Salt and pepper brings out a lot of flavor, especially with meat. Just kind of sprinkle on here again. And then the last and final step is Reynolds wrap, aluminum foil. Very simple. Cover this with aluminum foil. Just put it on like so, completely cover it, and then you throw it in the oven and you bake it at 275 for 3 hours. And that's it. 275, 3 hours. And then that's your meat, and your meat should be done. Speaking of meat, it's time for me to pull out the stuff that's already in the oven that I put in a little over 3 hours ago. So I feel like I'm on a super fancy, I love this show, you guys. This is really fun. So let me see if I can move my camera. Cheryl, what are you working on over there?
I am getting ready to start the pickles. So with the pickles, there's, 2 main ingredients, red onion and cucumber. I decided to go with the standard cucumber because it was a little nostalgic today, and so it makes me think of my grandmother and growing up. Typically, Bill and I will use the Old English. The newer ones have less seeds, but figured classic was better today. There is piece of equipment that we use called a mandolin. You may have seen these before. There's a variety of handheld kind. You can always use a food processor with the blade that slices if you want to. But we just, do this and put things together. I do not take the skin. I do wash the outside of the cucumber really well because there tends to be a bit of a waxy film on them when you get them. And that's mostly for transporting the vegetables back to the store. So just take the ends off, and then with the onion, I typically will cut it in half. For today, I'm using 1 pickle and a half onion. When we do this for a crowd, it's usually 2 or 3 2 or 3 cucumbers, and at least 1 whole, maybe 2 onions, depending on how much barbecue we're making. So, you can choose how to make however thick you want to make them, and basically you just slice them.
Nice.
And I stopped before I cut myself.
Don't cut yourself.
All right, so I have a little container here, and it has a Ziploc bag. I find it's much easier to put them in the refrigerator with all the ingredients in them in a Ziploc because it's easy to flip it around and massage it. These are going to be in the refrigerator for about 4 hours. So, of course, Amy, similar to you, I do have an example when we're ready to show the final product. But it's easy for you to put all the ingredients in there, and every half hour, 45 minutes, just shake it up, move it around a little bit. So I'm going to get some onion in. All right. And I like cutting these in half. And then I do like taking them apart. I don't necessarily put them in while they're all stuck together because you want that vinegar, sugar, salt, and pepper to really work on them as well. But when you're doing ribs or you're doing barbecue, Amy, I don't know if you ever take the meat off the ribs and make a sandwich out of them, but a little bit of this on top of that with the sauce is pretty good.
That sounds incredible.
All right. And we're going to be putting up the recipe for this, as well as Amy's and one other little treat I have. So you probably won't see me measure things too closely on here. And a lot of it has to do with what your palate really likes. We like a lot of pepper. So there's a lot of pepper in there. I usually start with about 2 tablespoons of salt. You can go more, you can go less. And then the last thing I need is a little bit of sugar. For this amount, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of sugar. I don't want them really sweet, but I don't want that acidity from the vinegar just being overwhelming when you go to bite into them. All right, so everything's in here. Give that a little shake. Now, I have 2 kinds of vinegar. They are both apple cider. And Amy, I don't know if it's something that you really look for, but the organic style that has more of the sediment in there is always a good treat, I think. And I think it's something that you can choose over just the standardized cider vinegar. You can do a blend of them. I never use white vinegar because it's just not enough of a flavor profile for me for what I like in my pickles.
Yeah.
And this is basically it, folks. The measurement is you want to be able to put enough vinegar in there to almost cover them. All right. Can you see that?
Yeah, that looks great.
So here's the trick. You zip it up, shake it, and massage it a little bit, and then you pop it in the fridge. And like I said, every 30 minutes, 45 minutes, go in there and do exactly that.
Shake it up.
About halfway through, actually taste the vinegar because you're going to want to adjust. Does it need more salt? Could it use a little more sugar? And you can do that halfway through. The reason you want to do that is both salt and sugar has to melt. So you want to give it extra time. If you just put salt on and sugar on at the end, it's going to be on top of the pickle. It's not going to be throughout the whole flavor profile. So you'll want to make sure you're adjusting that as needed.
Yeah.
All right.
That's great.
Shall we go to a video?
Sure. I just want to show you guys really quick before we go to a video what the finished ribs are going to look like when you're done.
Yum.
So let me pull the phone off of here for a second to see if this helps. So when you're done, the ribs are going to look a lot like this. I don't know if you can see them.
Nice.
They're so yummy. And what you're going to do is take these out of the pan and you're just going to drain that juice. So while we're going to video, then I'm going to go ahead and do that and then take care of that. And then it'll all be ready for when the sauce is done to sauce them and put them back in the oven.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Amy, do you want to set up this video for us?
Sure. Which one are we going to first?
Hold.
I don't remember which one. Hold on.
Not hold.
Hold on. Okay.
Hold on.
So
Yep.
this is the song I wrote with my friend Michelle. Or I'm so sorry. I'm getting people's names mixed up. I wrote this with my friend Megan Farrell, and then also my two producers, Kit Carlson and Chip Johnson. This is the title track off of my EP Hold On that came out last year. And it's probably one of my favorite songs on the album, mainly just because it's a positive message. It's this, look, sometimes life kind of sucks. And right now we're in a massive global pandemic. Life can kind of be not the best. But this is really one of those motivational videos. This is a lyric video my friend Paul Fowl put together for me for the song. And yeah, here you go. Just to bring some joy and excitement into your life. Hold on, don't give up. Good things are going to come.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, no, don't give up. When your light is fading from the troubles you're facing, don't give up. No, no, you're enough. Hold on. Hold on. Good things are gonna come. Good things are gonna come. Hold on. Hold on. Good things are gonna come. Good things are gonna come to you. When you're out of patience, take a breath, you can change it. Don't give up. No, no, don't give up. Remember, if you fall again, it's not a break, it's just a bend. So don't give up. No, no, pick yourself back up and hold on. Hold on. Good things are gonna come. Good things are gonna come. Hold on. Hold on. Good things are gonna come. Good things are gonna come to you. You got this one day at a time. Oh, you got this one day at a time. Oh, you got this one day at a time. Oh, you got this one day at a time. Oh, you got this one day at a time. Oh, you got this. Hold on, hold on. Good things are gonna come. Good things are gonna come. Hold on, hold on. Good things are gonna come good things are gonna come to you. Good things are gonna come. Good things are gonna come to you.
We're back.
So
Yeah, you couldn't, Amy, you couldn't see her, but Cheryl was just dancing around the kitchen.
Well, I turned the volume on my laptop because I was like, I've got this much time to prep the next step of what we're doing. But I was looking at some of the comments too on Facebook, and people are like, "This vegetarians are not going to like this meal."
That's why we had the disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, are you guys okay if I go ahead and start the sauce?
Absolutely.
Perfect, because we got to get it simmering for a little while. Now, I have kind of come up with what I do with a lot of recipes, and I think this is probably what most people do, is I find something that looks good online and then I modify it to make it something that I really like. And so I found this recipe online. Actually, I created a new recipe from a recipe I found online that had ingredients that I already had at home. And as most barbecue sauces, they call for ketchup. Now, I personally am not a fan of store-bought ketchup. I think it's way too sweet. I'll eat it at restaurants. I'll have it on my French fries. But at the end of the day, I really love making my own ketchup. So I found a recipe through Whole30, modified that a little bit as well, and have started making my own ketchup. Now, with everybody watching this, you might be able to put all of these ingredients together and just simmer it in a pot, and it might make a great barbecue sauce. I've never done that. So I'm going to make the ketchup first to show you guys how you can make a healthy ketchup at home. And then we're going to finish up the sauce with the rest of the ingredients. So similar to Cheryl and Bill, I've got everything kind of pre-measured out here. I hope you guys can see okay. So I'm starting off with, and also another side note, this is a gas stove. If you're cooking with a gas stove, be very, very careful with the heat because it can get so much hotter than a normal electric stove. It gets hotter than electric stoves. So I'm starting off with, for the ketchup, I wrote it on a piece of paper because I'm not awesome at remembering things. It's 1/3 cup of apple juice or apple cider. I couldn't find apple cider at the store, so I decided to get a apple juice. The biggest thing right here with the apple juice to remember is you want to get something that doesn't have any added sugar to it. So either get 100% juice or get a low sugar juice if sugar is a big issue for you. I ended up just getting 100% apple juice. If you don't have apple juice, you can always use water, but the apple juice or the apple cider gives it a little bit of an extra kick. So this is 1/3 cup of apple juice and 1/3 cup of apple cider vinegar. Yes. So apple juice and apple cider vinegar. All right. So I'm pouring that in the pot. And then next, and I got to actually turn the heat up a little bit now because I turned it too low. Next, it's just a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. Really easy. Put the whole can in there. So I'm just going to, I don't know if you guys can see all this. I don't have a Bill assistant to help me with the camera angles. Anyway, just put all of this in here. The entire can, guys, of the tomato paste. And then you're going to mix this up until it kind of is all blended together. And then you're going to add your spices. And in fact, you don't really have to wait till it's all blended together to add the spices. I have already kind of put the spices aside. It is let me make sure I'm telling you the right thing. A teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I personally, this is optional. You don't have to do it, but I am a huge fan of clove. I love clove. I love the smell of clove. So I actually put 1/4 teaspoon of clove in the ketchup as well. So just put all that together. And then you're basically stirring it all together. I think you guys can see until and heating it for probably about 5 minutes. You can simmer it. I try to be very careful with the simmer because it starts splashing everywhere. You want to keep kind of stirring it so it doesn't get too thick. You can cover it for a little while and then stir every minute or so. But that is how you make the ketchup. So while that is doing that, I'm actually going to switch burners here. Let's see, get the back one going, turn it to the same temperature level. So now I'm going to start the barbecue sauce while the ketchup is getting ready to kind of cut down some time here a little bit. So really the ketchup is only going to take about 5 minutes or so, 5 to 8 minutes. If you're doing it for just ketchup, you can pick the consistency. The longer you let it cook, the thicker it's going to get. For the sake of the barbecue sauce, I may not need to have it get super thick because the barbecue sauce itself, as it simmers, is going to get thicker and thicker. So switching pans, or pots, I should say. One to the front burner, one to the back. So in this one, we're going to start with the barbecue sauce. Now, I've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm going to put that in the pot and let it heat up. So it should just take a minute or 2 to heat. And then when it's heated, which should be pretty soon because these gas stoves are really temperamental and they can heat things up very quickly, you have 2 cloves of garlic minced up. I prefer using the really big cloves of garlic when I do this because I love garlic. I probably could have done 4 cloves of garlic and I still would have been super happy, but I didn't want to make this sauce to the point where you guys wouldn't eat it. So, so you've got the oil heating up, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and yep, it looks like it's almost heated. And then you add your garlic. And then you're really only gonna add the garlic for just a few minutes. You only want it to kind of just kind of lightly brown and get aromatic. You don't want to burn the garlic. This is the big no-no. Don't ever burn the garlic because then you have to start all over again. So I'm going to do this before the oil gets way too hot because then I might burn the garlic. So I'm going to use the same spoon for the ketchup because it doesn't really matter. Put that in. Okay, it wasn't quite hot enough yet. It's going to get there. So in a few minutes, the oil is going to get hot enough to where I might just have to turn the temperature up just a minute since I realized that I wasn't preheating that pan. And then I'm going to stir my ketchup just to make sure that it's not burning. Really just stirring it all together. There we go. Now the garlic is simmering a little bit. Okay, make sure the back is turned up a little bit there too. Burners. This is my first, I don't really use the stove that much, so it takes me just a minute. So now if you guys can see, let me pull this in. I don't know if you can, let me pull the phone off of the thingy. I'm gonna end up getting food all over this kitchen. All right, so if you guys can see, the garlic is lightly simmering and it probably could go a little bit hotter, but you really just want this to simmer and just to get lightly browned, like I said. And it really is only gonna take like a minute or 2. It's not gonna be really long. So let me put you back up here. We can hear the sizzle and the simmer. Oh, you know what? Cheryl, I didn't follow your instructions. You want to get all the stuff out of the measuring things that you have in there. All right,
I feel like I can smell it from here, Amy.
Oh, it smells so good. And the whole kitchen smells great. My parents actually have like a 3-floor house, and the attic is going to be the best smelling place in this house by the time we're done with all this cooking. Speaking of my parents, and we're talking about Father's Day and everything, I'm stealing one of their cruise line aprons. My parents are very big Viking cruisers, and they do Viking cruise, they do uncruise, and they were able to do a couple cruises at December and February this year, right before COVID. But they do cooking classes on these cruises. So we have been sharing stories about the difference between a Viking cruise and a rock boat over the last couple of days. Different. I sent them the recap video. All right, so the garlic is getting lightly browned. So what you want to do when it gets lightly browned, you're going to add all of the other ingredients into it. So I'm just going to kind of skip over the ketchup just to give it a second longer. Then I'm going to add, let's see, a 1/4 a cup of water and another 1/4 a cup of apple cider vinegar into here, into the oil and the garlic. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of paprika, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, sweet smoked paprika, and then a teaspoon of chipotle chili powder. I didn't like the spices that the other recipe was using. I was like, I don't want to add just plain chili powder. Let's get fancy. Let's add chipotle chili powder and see what that does. And then you're also going to add, now this is where the sugar replacement comes in, you guys. I'm just going to show you this really quickly. I'm a big fan of Swerve. I've been using Swerve now for a while in all of my cooking because it's a 0-calorie sweetener. It's erythritol. And it is my absolute favorite sugar replacement so far, because it's the only thing that I found that comes very, very close to the exact same measurements as sugar. You might have to give and take here a little bit, but they actually make a brown sugar replacement. I'm showing you guys in the picture, Swerve, the ultimate sugar replacement, brown sugar. And it tastes almost exactly like brown sugar, which is incredible. So I use it in oatmeal. I use it in a bunch of things. And you're going to add a half a cup of this. You might have to, if you're using regular sugar, you might have to kind of taste what, you might have to do it by taste. But I found that a half a cup works perfectly for this sauce recipe of the brown sugar replacement. I had just a little under a half a cup, so I might have to add regular Swerve just to taste it after that. So you add in the Swerve, brown sugar replacement, and then you add in the ketchup that you just did. So the ketchup makes about a cup. If you're using regular store-bought ketchup, which I don't condone, but if you feel like you want to skip over making your own ketchup, by all means go, oh, I'm burning it, crap. Yeah, you don't want to get it too hot. Dump all the ketchup in. But if you're using store-bought ketchup, the point I was trying to say is you want to add about a cup of ketchup into this recipe. And then it's really simple. Like I said, I may have been able to combine all these ingredients from the beginning, but I never figured it out that way. So that's why we have 2 steps for this. And then what you do is you bring this to a simmer, basically, and you cover it and you let it simmer for about 15 minutes until it thickens up into a nice sauce. So that is it. I've got to let the sauce kind of simmer for a little bit, and then we're going to add it to the ribs. So Cheryl, what do you have going on over there?
Well, I've been working on a little accompaniment to the cornbread. We love honey butter, so I did soften a stick of butter, and I always use salted. I don't want to add salt to this particular preparation, so I use salted. And I mixed about 1/3 of a cup of, whatever honey you want to use. You can use, anything you get from the grocery store. You can use raw honey, whatever suits your dietary needs. I also want to point out that you can clarify your butter or use ghee and start with that if that's something that's better for you dietary wise. But I added a little extra ingredient. We tend to buy this almost by the gallon. It's a big product in our household. So I added a little bit of a kick. So that is going to be.
What is that? Is that Frank's?
Frank's hot sauce.
So just getting it ready, putting in a nice little ramekin, and that will go with our slice of cornbread.
Sweet hot.
Yes. And I am going to take the cornbread out of the oven. Oh, where are you?
Right here.
There we go.
So you flipped it over at some point.
I did. I didn't want to do it on camera. I mean, I don't mind making mistakes because, Julia Stiles says, just cook on. So what I did is I flipped it over about the last 10, 15 minutes. So let's
wow.
There you go.
Oh, beautiful. That looks great.
I love a little bit of char. To me, anytime you can put char on something, I'm the kind of person that eats my marshmallows totally burnt. But
Yeah.
it gives a little flavor. It gives more crunch and texture. So we're going to let that cool a little bit, and I'll get a slice. I'll run you through the pickles because the ones that we did ahead of time are ready.
Perfect.
We started with the ones that were in the bag, and you can, they still look very raw and they're very stiff. Once they've had that time, you can see now they're more like that pickled texture, and those onions are now pickled nicely. And so that will be our side for your ribs, along with the cornbread.
I love it.
All righty. I love the idea of your sauces. And one of the things that I noticed that, you were making points about buy products with no sugar added. And I find now when I go to the grocery store, there's a lot more options. Amy, your tomato paste, for example, you can find just about anything without sugar these days. So you really can make a lot of adjustments to dietary needs, which I find wonderful for folks that have sensitivity.
Absolutely. And a big thing for me is really not so much that I can't have sugar, because I can. I just like feeling better about I just like knowing that if I'm going to down a whole rack of ribs, that I had made an attempt to be moderately healthy in the process of making it. But there are a lot of people too that do have, sugar issues and dietary issues. But you're right. A lot of the biggest part of going to the grocery store for me, I found, is just reading labels. Yeah. There were so many things I was surprised that had milk in it, that had no need to have milk in it, or that had soy, or that had, something that somebody might not be able to eat. And and it's actually been kind of a blessing, because it's forced me to cook my own food. It's forced me to really experiment at home and say, well, man, I know I love fried chicken. Like, how can I make a healthier baked version of that? Yep. Or, those types of things. Yeah.
And if you're in the baking aisle, the selections of pre-mixed type things that are gluten-free are fantastic. But to your point of reading labels, super, super, super important. You may be gluten-free and there's a gluten-free, all-in-one flour, but check those ingredients of what kind of flours they're using. I know my sister-in-law has a potato allergy, and potato flour absolutely is typically one of the ingredients in those types of blended mixes. So, reading labels is uber important these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me more about, I guess we've got some time to kill. I want to hear more about your dad. And did you guys ever cook together? Did you have things that you made?
Oh, that's a great question. My dad was not a kitchen person.
Oh.
My mom was very good at making all of his favorites. And, you did breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So he wasn't necessarily a kitchen person, but he liked to be in the kitchen. So, he'd be there chatting away, especially in the later time of his life, just to be part of the crowd and that type of thing. Now, going shopping for the food, that's a whole different story.
Oh, yeah.
That part
I'm
he
sure.
really loved. So it's just interesting when you think about the dynamics of your youth and where you are today. I mean, we're talking about specialty food items. We're talking about sensitivities. A lot of that just really wasn't vetted out back in the 70s, 80s even.
No.
So we pretty much just ate meat and potatoes. My grandmother put up a lot of things, meaning you make fresh stuff, jams, that kind of thing. But my dad's favorite thing to eat, my great-grandmother used to make homemade chicken and noodles. And that has carried down through the ages. My sister and I now know how to make them. And maybe we'll make that a topic one day for here.
Yeah.
But it's those older recipes that you throw caution to the wind, because it's going to be full on flour and chicken fat.
Yeah. Those are the ones where you're like, I think I'll suffer through a stomach ache today just to eat that. It's worth it.
And
I'm not going to die if I have dairy. I'll be okay. I'll just be a little, uncomfortable.
Yeah. How about you?
Like as I said, my stepdad was a huge cook. I have memories of my dad. My dad would cook and my stepmom would cook a lot. My dad would make a lot of my grandmother's recipes. So we have a family recipe. It's macaroni and cheese with bacon, which is my absolute favorite dish. But every time I try to make it, and now I can't have cheddar cheese anymore, or I can if I find a decent substitute, or I suffer through the stomach ache. But for some reason I can never make it as good as my stepmom or my grandmother made it. There's something about the way those old ovens would work, and then like the pans that they use, and it would get crispy on the outside, and it goes right out the window. My dad also loved, because he's up in New Jersey, loved making matzo ball soup. He was huge. Oh, it's so good. My dad also made omelets, like really good omelets all the time. And I'm a terrible omelet maker. I don't know how to do it. My omelets always turn out to be more of like an egg scramble versus an omelet. And then my stepdad would grill a lot, which is why I kind of thought about, since I'm here in Virginia with my stepdad and my mom, I figured I would make ribs because it was closest thing to grilled meat that I could think of. But we would do, you know, sausages and steaks and all of that stuff. So yeah, we would do some cooking together. But similar to you, like hanging out in the kitchen for me, regardless of which side of the family it was, it was that's where we all hung out. That's where we conversed and talked and would sit around. And the kitchen was almost the dining room. You know, that was the family meeting room. It was where you got together and told stories. It feels like home to be in a good kitchen. And you have a beautiful kitchen, by the way. I've been there. It's stunning.
Thanks.
So
Well,
we
you
might
know,
need,
it's funny because that's what happens. I mean, whether
Yeah.
it's, you know, a group of musicians or our neighbors, whatever's going on, this is the hub. This is where we live, and this is where everybody just wants to hang out. It doesn't matter. You really don't have to sit around a table anymore. It's just wherever you can be together and the kind of great conversations you can have.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I still need probably about maybe another 7 minutes on the sauce.
Yeah.
Just to get it really going. But I'll show you guys again. So I pulled out the ribs. They're ready to go. So I pull them out of the pan. I drain the juice out of the pan, and then I flip them back over upside down. And the reason I do this, because I'm trying to speed up the conversation part of all this. But when you go to sauce the ribs, because the next step is we basically are going to sauce them, then throw them in the broiler. So when you pull out the ribs out of the oven, make sure you set the oven to broil, and don't keep it at 275. We're going to sauce all of the ribs. We're going to put them back in the pan, uncovered this time. And then we're going to broil them for probably about 5 to 7 minutes, really just to caramelize the sauce on the ribs. And then they are done. Oh my gosh, that looks so good, Cheryl. I love cornbread so much. That's amazing. And you said that's the Lily, what was the
White
brand
Lily.
name? White Lily corn,
Yeah.
or was that the cornmeal or the?
Yeah, it's a cornmeal flour mixture with a buttermilk base. Yeah. But you can get just, you know, white cornmeal. I know a lot of people like the yellow. You can go either route. Just depends on what you want your cornbread to be.
Yeah.
This is our family. This is what I grew up eating.
Yeah. We made some biscuits this morning, or I shouldn't say I didn't make anything this morning. My stepdad made biscuits, but he used the White Lily self-rising flour, and then Crisco, and then instead of milk, he actually was nice and used my cashew milk, which was great. And I didn't realize that biscuits were actually really simple to make. And I've lost you.
Oh.
I was just saying I didn't realize that biscuits were so simple to make. There are only 3 ingredients in biscuits.
I know, you know, and they can be very temperamental. Biscuits can be really challenging. Billy is on the other side now, so we made a little switch.
All right. We're going to let you take over the microphone for a little while. About 5 more minutes on the sauce, and then I think
worries.
it might be thick enough.
Ask you some questions about the music industry.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, no, I just thought I'd ask. Obviously, it's an interesting time to be a musician during a global pandemic. I'm sure everyone online has probably, is familiar with the online shows that you've been doing. I just thought, maybe you could share with us, what it's been like, how, you transitioned to doing the online shows quickly. I think that's because you were doing them before, and that was probably an advantage because not everyone was doing that. But I mean, do you think, when will we get back to live shows?
I don't know. I think, I will say from a perspective for me, I've been, most of the musicians, have been self-employed in music for a really long time. I've been self-employed for 13 years now. Going on touring, if we can even count the touring I did at the beginning of the year, for 7 years. And so when to get to a position, and it's not just the entertainment industry, but, the service industry and a lot of other places are people that are dependent on needing to travel and being in big crowds or being around crowds. It's a little scary right now. I will say that I've been very fortunate that I have our incredible community, the Rock Boat community, the Rock by the Sea community, people that have been watching the online shows, who have been really supportive and tipping. But it is a little bit of the, okay, when can we get back to normal? I was supposed to be touring for a couple weeks in July, and we were kind of on the fence of, do we do the shows? Do we not do the shows? And finally, we kind of all collectively made the decision it's better to be safe than sorry. So we're going to reschedule all of those. And then I was supposed to go across country all of August and September, going up through Canada, and then over through northern, the northwest side of the country through Washington and Oregon, Seattle, or Northern California, and coming back. But Canada now has decided they're not opening up until September or later. So a lot of stuff is just up in the air. It's really we all want to get back to work, but for me, the house shows, and from an income perspective, yeah, my income is shot. It's definitely taken a huge hit. However, I'm just happy that I have such a great support system. I had already planned on giving up my apartment to be on the road touring. So I decided to still give up my apartment and come home to Virginia for just a couple months to figure out until, when I can hit the road again is when I can get another apartment and, figure out life. But I'm just fortunate that I have that support system. A lot of full-time musicians, a lot of people don't have a support system as much. But right now, the biggest thing is, I want to be out playing music. I want to be out. I want to come see you guys and just hug you and cook food and sit in your living room and play music. But the house shows and the touring with music is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be engaging. It's supposed to be a time where people can let loose and relax. And unfortunately, I think if you try to do those too soon, people are not going to feel comfortable. And so I don't know when we're going to get back to a new normal. I will say that, you and you guys and we've had some discussions about ways that I want to expand and grow outside of just music alone. I am developing a speaking program and a coaching program for mindset. That's been a big thing for me over the years with self-love and empowerment, and what we think about, we bring about, and having control over the mind. And so for me, it's been kind of a little bit of a blessing, even though it's a scary blessing, because, who doesn't, like not having a job. But it's been nice to have a little bit of time to take a step back, to put things into perspective, to say, you know what, I'm alive. I've got plenty of things I can be grateful for, and just build the next step of life and build the next journey, the next thing. What's it like for you guys as music listeners?
Yeah, so as we're music promoters as well. So we did just cancel one of our festivals in August, Sea Leaf with the band Carbon Leaf. Postponed it to next year. All of the artists that were on that bill immediately agreed to be on it next year, but we basically delayed it almost exactly a year. So it's definitely challenging. I agree with you. Hopefully we can get back to small crowds like the house shows with maybe 20 to 30 folks, everyone wearing a mask, that sort of thing. And then obviously hopefully they'll discover a vaccine and we can get back to normal in 2 years, if possible 3 at the worst, as far as I can tell.
I hope that by next year things are back. But it's really, like we said, just being safe. My sauce is not thickening up the way it's supposed to. So
don't worry.
I think what I'm going to do, and just for the sake of time, is go ahead and just sauce up these ribs. They're still going to taste good, even if the sauce is a little runny. And then get them back in the oven so that we can finish the show for another hour.
That sounds good.
Yeah, because I think what'll happen is, I think as it cools, the sauce cools, it'll thicken up. Yep. Right now it's really hot. But you're supposed to, for guys, if you're cooking the barbecue sauce at home, it's supposed to have a thicker consistency for it. So I guess, why don't I go ahead? Should I finish up?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So here is the barbecue sauce. And what I'm going to do, for the sake of making sure I don't burn my hands and stuff, luckily my stepdad has these pots that the handles don't get hot, which is incredible. It's an all clad. That's probably why. So, all right, we got the ribs here. And what I do, this is very, very simple, you guys. Super easy stuff. I have no idea where the brush is I'm looking for. Here we go. Okay. So you want to get a brush, any type of brush. It doesn't matter. This is a silicone brush, but you can use anything. So you take the sauce. Can you guys see? Pretty much, sort of.
We can. It looks great.
Yeah, and you're basically, I didn't even taste the sauce because I didn't even know if I have to add more sugar or not. But I'll tell you what, my parents are going to eat it and they'll love it. It's going to be great. If they don't, we have a whole other rack of ribs we can make.
Well, Amy, we brought my mom in because I needed approval.
Hi.
I needed approval on that cornbread.
What's your verdict?
It looks delicious.
Oh, have you not tried it yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going to sauce all of the ribs. I'm definitely making a mess. All right, so I'm saucing one side. I'll show you guys the inside of the cornbread. Or not the cornbread, of the ribs. I'm a cooking show expert. And then I'm going to take them with the tongs. Very easy. And then put this face down back of the pan. And then we're going to sauce the other side.
Good. Yeah.
So really easy, very messy. You can kind of be a little liberal with the sauce if you need to be, just for the sake of time, etc. And just sauce over everything. Now, the reason I want to just point out that you want to do a taste testing with the sugar or the sugar substitute is that the apple cider vinegar can sometimes get a little bit too tart. Some people love it, some people don't. I prefer a little bit of a sweeter sauce. So that's why I kind of do the taste testing, which I totally did not do with this sauce. So I can sprinkle some fake sugar on it if I need to, if it's not good enough. So now that the oven is set to broil, I'm going to go ahead, like I said, coating everything. And I'm going to set this back into the oven for probably about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes on broil, just to get it caramelized. And then it should be good to go. I really want to taste this sauce, honestly. I haven't done that yet. Oh, yeah. It needed a little more sugar, but that's okay. It's edible. Okay. So I'm going to put this back in the oven. And you don't have to cover it when you're doing the broil. You only want to cover it when you're baking. Let me find the things.
You know, Amy, I was thinking about the sauce and, you know, the fact that you are using a sugar substitute. You know, typically when you're making barbecue sauces and you put it in for that second turn in the oven, it can burn. It becomes very sticky and very caramelized. And I'm anxious to see how yours turns out. I'm hoping to get that recipe and give that a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, it caramelizes a little bit. I've never tried it with real sugar, so I don't know the difference of the texture. I do know that sauce was a little bit runny when I put it on there because I hadn't thickened up as much as I wanted. But honestly, it's all going to taste the same. It's going to be good.
No, it's going to be fantastic.
It's all going to the same place. And so I'm going to try 5 minutes because this is the gas oven and it is significantly hotter than my electric oven. So we will see what happens with this. I've got 4 minutes and 22 seconds. My parents have these amazing little timers that have magnets on the back. So you can literally just like flop them up onto the oven, which is great.
Well, I think this has been, number one, a fun time for us. Number two, it's kind of cool to have a little bit of girl power going on.
Yes.
Today. And we celebrate our dads, whether they're still with us, whether we have more than one, you know, every single day. So, you know, happy to hear your experiences with your dads. Happy to share some about mine. And Bill having some time to talk about being a father as well as sharing some memories about his dad. So, you know, I think this has been fantastic. I'm hoping everybody gets in the kitchen and gives all of these recipes a try. We're going to go eat some cornbread, and I think Billy may be making ribs this evening.
Yes. Yeah. It's only 3 hours. There you go.
There you go.
So,
and
awesome.
We're going to take you out with another video, right?
So it's a
Yeah.
video from Rockboat,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it's from Rockboat.
Anything you want to tell us about this video?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned it earlier, for me, the biggest kind of self-discovery I've had with my life and music and performance is really just discovering who I am, discovering the things that are really important to me, and really developing a healthy relationship with myself. For a very long time, and many people, male and female, they say, statistically speaking, 90% of men and women have something they don't like about themselves physically. And therefore we shame ourselves a lot. We beat ourselves up a lot. And I found that the minute I made a conscious decision about 4.5 years ago to stop being that person, to stop shaming, to stop, beating myself up over every little thing that didn't matter, I became such a happier, more fulfilled human being. And so we wrote a song. I wrote this with my friends, Sarah Williams and Michelle Pereira. And we wrote a song for anyone else who's been going through that type of struggle. For every little boy, every little girl, every grown man and woman, or non-gender, whatever it is that you identify as, anyone who struggles with their own self-worth and their self-love. This was a live video of the Rockboat earlier this year, not a Viking cruise. And this was the pool deck stage. I was so honored to be able to be on that stage with my full band performing. And it's just a quick clip of just me really getting into it and trying to spread self-love to everyone. So,
well, it was fantastic. We were there cheering you on, and I loved every minute of it. So we're happy to share this video. We hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and we're going to chat with you soon.
Absolutely. And for you guys who are still following along with the ribs, when they're done caramelizing, you pull them out and you eat them. They're going to fall right off the bone. They're going to be great. So
Thanks,
awesome.
Amy.
Thank you guys. This was so much fun.
Nice job.
Thanks.
I'm